There is a specific kind of cringe that midlife women feel when they have to film themselves, and I think we need to talk about it. Because it's not just about looking older on camera. It's about the fact that we genuinely didn't grow up doing this kind of stuff. And now we're being told that if we want to build an online business, we have to suddenly be completely comfortable having our face on the internet every single day. And honestly, that is a really big ask. I have spent years hiding behind logos and brand names because I was too scared to show my face. And in this video, I'm going to tell you what I wish I'd known about that choice before I made it, because it cost me years of growth that I'm never going to get back. Hi, I'm Jenny. Welcome to the Bold Biz. If we haven't met yet, I help women over 40 build online side businesses without the hustle, without the burnout, and without trying to be 25 again. If that's you, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. So let's start with why this is such a particular struggle for women in our age bracket, because I think it really helps to name it before we try to fix it. We're a generation that didn't grow up with mobile phones. We didn't come of age constantly updating our social media or filming ourselves at restaurants or on trips or any of these everyday situations that younger women now do without even thinking. So when we step into building a side business and we're told that the way to grow is to film ourselves talking to a camera multiple times a week, that's not a small ask. That is a really big behavioral shift for most of us. My daughter is 12 and she's grown up with phones being completely normal, and for her, recording herself or being on camera or showing her face online is just part of her daily life. It's not a thing she has to overcome. But for women our age, it can feel completely unnatural. No shame in admitting that, because honestly, it is unnatural for us. We weren't conditioned for it the way the next generation has been. And on top of that, there's the very real fear of the internet trolls, the dreaded comments, the people hiding behind anonymous accounts who will say something cruel about your appearance or your voice or whatever else they can find to pick at. And that fear is completely valid, because it does happen, and it's a horrible feeling when it does. And I don't want to dismiss that, because it was a huge part of why I personally resisted being visible for so long. So let me tell you about my own faceless era, because it lasted a long time. And I built quite a few businesses while hiding behind a logo. I started a print-on-demand jewelry business at one point, and it was completely faceless, just me uploading designs and hoping people would buy them. I tried Amazon KDP, the coloring books, the puzzle books route, also completely faceless. And then I had Knit and Knot Co., which was my yarn lovers accessories brand, also entirely faceless. And honestly, in those early days, hiding behind the brand felt easier because I didn't have to deal with the discomfort of being seen. I didn't want to become someone who constantly had her phone up, filming herself, talking to her own screen, putting things on social media all day long. Honestly, the thought of doing that just felt exhausting and not really like me. And I was very uncomfortable seeing myself in photos or videos, which I think is something a lot of midlife women quietly struggle with. That feeling of, oh God, is that what I actually look like? Is that what I sound like? Do I really want the whole world to see this? So I stayed in that faceless bubble for years. And on the surface, I told myself it was a strategic choice. But if I'm being really honest with you, the truth was simpler than that. I was scared. And being faceless was the safer option. Now here's where things shifted for me, and it didn't happen overnight. It took a really long time to build it up. The first piece was just a confidence thing, where over the years I slowly came to a place of, you know what? If you don't have anything better to do with your life than to comment negatively on other people who are out there pursuing their dreams, that's your problem, not mine. And I think that's a mindset most of us have to build slowly over time. You don't just wake up one morning with it. You have to grow into it. The bigger shift, the one that actually pushed me into being visible, was this. I realized it was getting harder and harder for my audience to connect with me when I was trying to inspire women to build something of their own from behind a logo. Because my whole brand is about helping other midlife women create side businesses, and if I'm not even willing to show up myself, how am I going to be a role model for them? It felt completely backwards and I couldn't reconcile it anymore. So I decided that my own personal fears couldn't keep standing in the way of me reaching my goals. Because for years, I had been my own biggest block when it came to building a successful side business. And I was so tired of that. I was determined to get out of my own way. So what did that actually look like in practice? Because I want to be very specific here. Because I don't think anyone goes from completely faceless to fully visible overnight. You have to ease yourself into it. And for me, the first step was actually starting my podcast back in November of last year. Because the podcast let me show up with my voice, which felt manageable without the visual pressure of being on camera. That was step one. And then last year, in December, I did a 30-day YouTube Shorts challenge just for myself. 1 short a day, no makeup, terrible lighting, no script, no editing, just me talking to the camera for 30 to 60 seconds about something related to my business. And I want to be really clear that I wasn't doing it for the views. I genuinely didn't care if anyone watched. The whole point was just to get comfortable being in front of the camera, to stop flinching when I saw my own face on the screen, to stop obsessing over every awkward pause or filler word. That was step 2, and it really worked. Because visibility is a muscle, and the only way to build it is to use it. And then earlier this year, I made a bigger commitment, which was to go all in on YouTube. And honestly, looking back, YouTube was the platform that could have helped me the most this entire time. And I'd been avoiding it for years purely because I didn't want to be visible. So this year, I decided to stop avoiding it and start using it. And what really unlocked things for me was finding a teleprompter app that lets me prepare my script in advance, which means I can stay on track without rambling or sidetracking myself for an hour. And that turned out to be the last piece of the puzzle. Because once I knew I could prepare what I was going to say, the whole visibility thing felt so much more manageable. So now I post a weekly YouTube video, and I've downgraded my social media accounts to a minimum where I show up occasionally, but I'm not relying on them to drive my growth. And the funny thing is, I don't cringe anymore when I see myself on screen or hear my own voice, which honestly is a really nice place to get to, even if it took me about 4 years to get here. And here's the important part, because I don't want anyone watching this thinking that face forward is the only valid path, because it really isn't. Faceless brands can absolutely work, and for some businesses, they're actually the more strategic choice. So I want to give you the question I think you should ask yourself if you're trying to decide which direction to go in. And the question is this: am I choosing faceless because of fear, or am I choosing faceless because it genuinely fits the kind of business I'm building? Because those two are completely different answers, and they need different responses. If you're selling templates on Etsy under a creative brand name, there's genuinely no reason for you to be the face of your business. You don't have to be on camera at all, and that's a perfectly valid choice. If you're building a niche affiliate site, or doing print on demand, or running an Amazon KDP business, again, you don't need to be visible. The product can carry the brand. But if your goal is to build a personal brand, or you want to coach or consult or teach or inspire, then at some point you're probably going to have to step into the visibility arena. Even if it's slowly and uncomfortably at first, that is okay. So the test I'd give you is really simple. If you sat down right now and asked yourself honestly, why am I leaning faceless? And the answer is something like, well, I just don't want people to see me, or I'm worried about what they'll say, or I can't stand seeing myself on camera. Then it's a fear answer. And it's something to work on slowly, the way I did last year. But if the answer is, my brand just doesn't need a face to work, then faceless is a real strategic choice and you should run with it without guilt. And here's the piece that genuinely changes everything for women considering faceless in 2026. AI has made it possible to build a professional, polished, faceless brand without hiring a team or spending thousands of dollars. 2 years ago, if you wanted to go faceless, you needed a designer for your brand, a copywriter for your content, and probably a virtual assistant to keep everything running. Now you can do all of that with Claude and a few smart tools. I know this because I literally just did it. 2 weeks ago, I sat down with Claude on a Saturday morning, and by Sunday evening, I had a brand new faceless business called Quietly Digital, complete with a domain, a funnel, a landing page, email automation, and a live offer. 1 weekend. And honestly, the quality of what AI helped me produce in those 2 days would have taken me weeks to build, even 3 years ago. So if you've been thinking about faceless because you don't want to be on camera, the good news is the tools have finally caught up to the ambition. And it's a genuinely viable path now in a way it wasn't before. So on that note, I want to give you a quick update on Quietly Digital because we're officially 2 weeks in and this is going to become a regular thing on the channel where you get to see what it actually looks like to build a faceless business from scratch at 52 while working a full-time job. I'm calling this series The Second Build, and it's got a double meaning. It's my second business, and it's being built for women in their second chapter. So here's what happened in the past 2 weeks. I came up with the idea on a Saturday morning, sitting with my coffee and Claude. I bought the domain on Sunday, and from Monday onwards, I've been building it out in the pockets of time I have around my full-time job. And honestly, ladies, it's been a thrilling 2 weeks. I've gotten further in the first 7 days than I would have believed was possible. And I think the reason is that this brand is the most aligned with who I actually am that I have ever built. There's this fire in my belly for it that I haven't had in any of my previous side business attempts, except for this one, the Bold Biz. And I think that's something to pay attention to in itself. That gut signal when something is actually right for you. And before I committed to building this, I did exactly what I tell you ladies to do, which is I ran the idea through my 4-filter framework, skills passed, because I've been using System.io for almost 5 years, and I'm a graphic designer by trade. The time filter, it passed because the funnel packaging I'm offering can be delivered inside of a week. The energy filter passed because I love this topic so much, I could talk about it for a year, even if I didn't make a single dollar. And the momentum filter passed because coaches, consultants are everywhere, and most of them are drowning in the tech side of it. So practically, here's what I've got done in the first week. I've got the domain, I built the entire funnel inside of System.io, I've got my offer live, I've got the landing page done, the thank you page, the order page, email automation set up, all of it. On Thursday morning, I woke up at 4 a.m., fully awake, and instead of getting frustrated about being up at that hour, I just decided, okay, I'm awake, might as well use this time. So I made a coffee and sat down at my desk and worked for 3 hours straight before my normal job even started. And in those 3 hours, I wrapped up the funnel, created the animations for my landing page, finished the offer page, and got the whole thank you flow working, which is more than I sometimes get done in a whole week of evenings. And the point isn't that you should set your alarm for 4 a.m. Please don't do that. But it is that when you find a project that genuinely lights you up, you'll find the time in places you didn't expect. Now on the faceless versus face forward question, here's where I've landed with Quietly Digital specifically. Quietly Digital is going to be about 80% faceless and maybe 20% face forward. And that's not because I'm hiding. It's because the business is a service-based brand and most of what I'm offering is done for you funnel work, which lends itself naturally to screen recordings and tutorials rather than me being on camera. Whereas the Bold Biz is going to stay completely face forward because this brand is a personal brand and that's the right call here. So both can coexist and that's actually kind of fun to design intentionally. Now, if you're sitting on a business idea right now and you're not sure whether to go faceless or face forward or both, or honestly, whether your idea is even the right one to pursue, I've put together a free guide called The Quiet List that walks you through the first steps of building something real without the noise. The link to grab it is the very first thing in the description below this video. It's totally free, just type in your email and it'll land in your inbox in a few minutes. So that's my honest take on the faceless versus face forward question. There's no single right answer, there's only the honest answer for you and your specific business. Just don't let fear make the decision for you. That's the one thing I wish I'd known years ago. Fear is a really convincing strategist, but it makes terrible business decisions. If this video resonated with you, please hit subscribe and ring the bell. New videos every Thursday for second chapter women who are ready to build something of their own without burning out. Until next time, stay bold, ladies. Bye for now.